Hello everyone, today we're going to be making some air dry clay using ingredients you probably have laying around the house. You're going to need cornstarch, white glue, white vinegar, lotion, and baby oil. If you don't have baby oil, you can substitute vegetable oil. That's what I used and mine came out pretty good. You're going to need something you can use to measure your ingredients with, something to stir it together with, and something to mix everything in. You're also going to want to make sure that you're set up on an easy to clean surface. It is going to get a little bit messy while you work. And towards the end, when you start working with it, you're probably going to want to have some wax paper or parchment paper to make sure that your project doesn't stick to the table when you're done. And to get started, you're just going to take all of your ingredients, take your measuring scoops, measure everything, dump it in the bowl, and get ready to go. So you're just going to add all of your ingredients to the bowl together and start mixing them around. It's going to be very thick and sticky, kind of goopy, difficult to mix. So you're going to really want to work some muscle in there. Make sure that you get it very thoroughly mixed together. If you pull it out too soon, it will start to stick to your hands, which makes it even harder to mix it around. Another thing you can do is try putting a little bit of that cornstarch from earlier on your hands to make them a little bit less sticky for the clay to stick to, and sprinkle a little bit more in there to make sure that it's not so thick and sticky itself. You can see how it's sticking to my spatula, sticking to the bowl. Alright, so it looks like it's starting to come together a little bit. Definitely sticking to my hands. So once you think it's come together a little bit, you can spread a little bit of that cornstarch on your surface that you're going to be mixing everything around on. See about pulling it out. Make sure it's getting nice and sturdy and not just sticking to your hands. Otherwise you might need to add a little bit more cornstarch. You can work it. It'll start to come together a little bit better with your hands. Do some kneading. It's sticking to me a little bit, so I might try adding a tiny bit more cornstarch to my clay. Scraping it out. Make sure you use a bowl you don't mind having to really clean up afterwards. And you can see it's starting to come together now. And kind of smush it around on the table a little bit. It's really mixing. I've got a little bit more in the bowl I can scoop out and add to it. And once you've got it done, and you think you've got it really well mixed, you can start coming together and making whatever your project's going to be. That new stuff's a little bit sticky, so we'll add a little bit more cornstarch to it. You can start working on your project. There's all kinds of great things you can do with this recipe. You can shape it out and do an impression of a handprint or something. You can kind of use cookie cutters and try different shapes that you could cut out of it and let them dry. Once it's dry, you can try painting it if you happen to have any paints around, or you can leave it white. If you know you want it to be a specific color before you're done, you can add food coloring in before you really start to mix it together and make sure that it's whatever color you want it to be, whether that's pink or red or orange or blue. And just mix your clay together and smush it out. If you don't want to work with all of it right away, make sure you wrap it up nice and snug, probably in something plastic like saran wrap, and make sure that it's not going to get too much air in it, air dry itself before you're ready to play with it. So just work with it, and then you can test out and make whatever you want to make with it. So once you start getting creative with your clay, you're going to want to make sure that it's on a very non-stick surface like parchment paper or wax paper. Again, you can always sprinkle a little bit of cornstarch on there to keep it from sticking as you work with it. The thicker that you leave your clay, the longer it's going to take it to dry out. Keep that in mind as you make your craft. So I'm smushing mine out a little bit thinner because I want it to dry pretty quick. If it starts getting really bad about cracking, you can always add a little bit more moisture from your vegetable oil or your lotion. Just put a little bit on your hands and kind of work that in. If you're using a cookie cutter, make sure you coat the base of your cookie cutter with a little bit of that cornstarch to keep it from sticking to the clay. Otherwise, it'll start to tear up what you're working on. And kind of slide that out. And there's your craft. There's all kinds of different things you can do. You can use cookie cutters, you can do an impression of something, you can draw on it, you can dye it. It's up to you. To dry your pieces, you're going to want to leave them on a flat, non-stick surface, such as the parchment paper, the wax paper we were using earlier, laying on a smooth table. You'll probably need to leave them overnight. A couple times you may need to flip them over just to make sure that they dry on both the top side and the bottom side so that they get a nice even drying. If you have any unused clay, you're going to want to wrap it up tightly in something plastic, like a plastic zip bag or plastic wrap, just something to make sure that all the air is out of it and it's not going to dry up before you get a chance to use it again. I hope you enjoyed making the clay, and I hope we get to see you again in the library soon.